Hello, thanks for joining us for Brainwave, a live webinar series from Brainrider. Today's topic is how to manage creative resources and marketing operations during economic uncertainty. My name is Scott Armstrong. I'm partner and CEO at Brainrider. And Brainrider is a global marketing services agency, and we really like to be the secret ingredient that helps our clients succeed by helping them with flexible resourcing that allows them to scale up or scale down their creative talent, their creative operations, and most importantly, their creative execution. And so today's webinar is really based on our learning working with our clients over the past few years, but particularly over the course of this year. It's a few minutes after 2, so I'm going to get started, and thanks very much for joining us today. I'm going to make sure that you know that you can put your hand up, you can chat, you can ask questions, and we will go ahead and get started with the slides themselves. That's me down in the corner waving hello and a warm welcome. Creative operations, marketing operations really is a challenging function at any point. So I'm always pleased to get together with a group of smart marketers who are trying to solve challenges in scale and excellence in terms of creative and marketing operations. And right now, that it's a climate of uncertainty. You can tell in my picture that I'm carrying the gray beard of experience. I've been through a few uncertain economic periods over my marketing career, which started at the very early 1990s. And over most of my career, the rule of thumb has been that marketing resources, marketing budget is cut early as recessions hit. And the good news is that spend often comes back early once the recession is over. But right now, if it's hard for central banks to predict what's happening, it's really hard for marketers and leadership teams to predict exactly what's going on. And we specialize in working with growth companies, which puts even more challenge on those predictions, because growth markets and growth funding change with uncertainty. And really, that's a game of focus and execution and pivoting against your core strategy. And so risky markets and changing economic conditions and the threat of a recession really add extra stress on resourcing strategy for growth companies, extra stress on marketers just like you. We feel it working with our clients. I know our clients are feeling it, and I see it market-wide. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about some of the ways that you can manage through and cope with that climate of uncertainty and still hit your objectives and succeed. Really, it's about flowing with the change. We cannot affect the economic cycle as individual marketers or companies. It's all about scaling up and or scaling down. Now, don't feel alone when you think about that challenge, right? I talked a little bit in the last slide about how great it is to get together with a group of like-minded people, but we're all facing that same kind of uncertainty. Over the past 6 months at Brainrider, we've seen several clients already restructure, including layoffs of over 15% of total headcount, with a big effect on creative operations and creative staffing, but quickly followed with pivots to focus on higher growth and more profitable lines of business. This is what growth companies do so incredibly well. It's simultaneously scaling up, scaling down, and shifting in response to market conditions. Now, the bodies might go away or be reprioritized, but for growth companies, the work never stops. The kind of pressure you and your teams are under will remain the same over a period of economic uncertainty and recession. And that has a big effect on priorities, spending, and your internal culture, keeping that motivation and productivity and engagement and sense of winning up while change is happening at a faster cycle. But it's also about keeping your eyes on the longer term prize. And so I'm going to talk a bit about building flexibility into your process, leveraging the experience of agency partners for smoother team transitions, and keeping your best people doing your most strategic work, as well as some of the operational elements that help that, like data and flexible resourcing models. You know, when your priorities change, you really have to quickly adjust your resourcing processes and priorities. That means lots of quick collaboration, flexibility, and focus. It means aligning your partners internally and externally. It means really keeping the energy of your growth strategy in place while you change up what you're doing. And most importantly, what you do with your internal teams is critical, because there's a lot of fear that comes into the market with economic uncertainty. And your internal teams need to be on your most important, most strategic, most motivating work during times of change for several reasons. The first is because you want to keep your talent. It's still a battle for talent out there. Secondly, you want to keep your talent motivated, not worrying or looking over their shoulder, but really focusing on the task at hand. And thirdly, as I said earlier, you're still tasked with executing. The work doesn't go away. And so really, it's about thinking and acting more flexibly while taking some calculated risks to drive business growth. One of our largest clients, just to give you an example, one of our largest clients restructures their teams every 6 months, despite the fact that they've become a multi-billion-dollar company, because their business and business priorities are still evolving so quickly. And when you're changing every 6 months, keeping your internal teams focused and motivated becomes a real task, and keeping everyone aligned on the same priorities and objective takes tons of communication, tons of accountability, and tons of effort. The real way to manage this pace of change is to embrace it. Don't fight it. Don't say, oh my God, we're heading into a recession, right? That's what the slow moving companies, the old economy companies do. In the new economy, what the smart clients do is they embrace that change and they say, what are the opportunities that economic uncertainty or change is bringing? What are the opportunities of reprioritizing our strategy and pivoting a little bit? What are the priorities of reassigning our teams so that they're working on the most strategic work? A key way to get there is to lean into your data to reforecast your needs and structure. Projects are a key metric, and you can see on this slide, this is projects that in fact are getting downsized as a result of pivoting and economic change this summer. They're a key metric, but so is team utilization, resource forecasting based on historicals and your understanding of upcoming needs, and capability mapping, anticipating the future. You want to measure budget and resource impact so you can scale up or down. And you really want some flexible staffing models so that your staffing's not driving your strategy, but your strategy is driving your staffing. And you've got more data than you might think, but you might not be tracking it, or you might not be analyzing it in a way that helps you make decisions, helps you with prioritization. But I think even most importantly, during times of change, use your data to track wins, identify challenges and opportunities, because that will support your budget discussions. You really want to go into budget planning cycles saying, look, these are the number of projects we did last year. Here's how we anticipate projects will change for this year. This is the growth project number we're trying to hit. And then this is the utilization and staffing model we think we need to get there flexibly, reducing the growth of internal headcount because of the uncertainty, but accelerating our ability to deliver those projects so that we can make a difference in the market, strike while the iron is hot, if that makes sense. I want to point out, you can raise your hand or ask questions at any point during this session. Our team is keeping an eye on that, and I know that data and how to use data is a big question for many clients. Look, there's a little bit of a sales spiel in today's webinar, but it's really only based on the fact that we have built Brainrider's value proposition to help clients win. And so in times of economic uncertainty, when you really can't forecast the future, you want to get the most out of your partners. And so deep partner relationships can help you corral freelance resources, give you one neck to choke, more accountability, but also more visibility into what's happening and the data around the projects, just as I talked about in the last slide. So if you've got a core resourcing partner, then they can understand your business and track the data of the projects they're working on, utilization, and help you forecast your needs when you go into that budgeting cycle. They can also offer increased flexibility and some cost-effective staffing models, right? So we are constantly shifting teams and capabilities between clients. So we're not laying people off, or we're not adding on to headcount to meet client needs. We're really managing our internal resources in a fairly sophisticated way to deliver against clients. You know, adding headcount takes anywhere from 6 to 13 weeks. Reducing headcount takes anywhere from 4 to 13 weeks. Both of them are hugely disruptive to internal processes, team motivation, and focus. But by working with an external partner who gets your business objectives and has a flexible resourcing model, you can rapidly scale up without that long-term commitment of headcount, and scale down in response to reprioritization. Particularly if you're able to collaborate across multiple lines of business. You know, that's the big learning when budgets shrink, is that if you can pool those budgets, you can work collaboratively, reduce the silos across multiple lines of business, then you can get a bigger pool of resourcing to play with, which will allow you to continue to execute projects, keep some senior talent, keep a wider range of capabilities on your projects, as opposed to individual lines of business doing individual hiring. And so that pool model or that grouping model is a really key strategy during a recession to keep the projects flowing and your talent engaged. And then most importantly, you lean on deep partners for capabilities you don't have in-house. So that's not just creative capabilities, whether that's motion graphics or product design or CMS or marketing automation or long format copywriting. All of those are agency skill sets. But deep partners can also give you historical analysis, trending across the industry, future needs analysis, and future capability analysis based on what you've done in the past. Lots of advice, but then I talked also at the start of this session about loneliness, how much stress and uncertainty you can be under in times like these. And an agency partner can really be on your side and in your court as part of that. We've got a couple of questions that have come in here. Let me slow down for a second. I think we got a few minutes and address them. The first one is talking about data. So can you share more examples as to what stories your data can tell? Yeah, awesome question. And if you're running creative or marketing operations, or you're really trying to project manage an increasing volume of high priority projects, Some of the stories your data can tell you is project velocity. How much time does it take to get a project completed? Resourcing utilization. What level of seniority and what skill sets are required to execute the work? Project. How much work is there and in what areas against what priority? Skill set. So where are your existing teams strong and succeeding? Where are your existing teams burning out, which is a key element during economic uncertainty? Where are your agency resources focused? Where are they succeeding? Where should you be doubling down? And then the last story that you can tell with some data is really what's the level of integration and collaboration you need with your partners to execute. Freelance resources can be really awesome to just plug a little hole. But if you want that freelance resource to really understand your brand guidelines, your tone of voice, your business strategies and objectives, you're really going to want them to be engaged more strategically in units in particular, right? So that there's a team that can rely on each other for that guidance. And now many of you will have internal creative directors and an amazing briefing process to get you there. But you know that when you're working with creative resources that are focused on your business, you have better results faster. And so data can help you tell all of those stories: velocity, capacity, capability, level of integration. And you can extract that data really well if you're working with one set of data that is measuring all of those elements and reporting on them weekly in burn reports, and then monthly in account updates, but really to help you with quarterly planning and annual planning. Let me know if I did a good job of answering that one. Here's a second one. Which areas of creative resourcing do you recommend using for a third-party agency? That's a really great question. I think there are very many different creative agencies, resourcing agencies that are out there. And so some of them act strategically on a project basis. We really specialize in helping to execute at scale. The key element is understanding clearly what you want your partner to do, number one. Understanding what the work is, the skills required to do that work, how much work there is, and then the level of integration or embeddedness you need to execute. That last question really relates to or connects to the idea of having your most senior people, most senior internal people on your most strategic projects, right? Because that level of integration with your existing operations, communication with stakeholders, understanding the brand and the value proposition is essential. Whereas if you're executing at scale, whether it's image resizing or whether it's tweaks to one pagers, whether it's email, writing, design, and deployment at scale, all of those elements can be more successfully outsourced. Particularly, our recommendation is the project management side of your team, both internally and externally, should be at least 20 to 30% of the budget. And we look at a model called producers. So project managers are amazing at tracking a project. Producers have the objective of delivering projects. And so in that creative resourcing from a third-party agency, I think you want to be looking at, is there scale? What are the skill sets, and does that agency have those skill sets to deliver? And then what's the level of integration? We work on pay-as-you-go projects, so just regular project work, but we also do reserve capacity where there are knowledgeable teams that are sitting in a pool ready to leap into action every month, and then fully embedded contingent work teams who are managed by and part of your internal processes. Okay, third question. How do you avoid layoffs and get more flexibility in resourcing? It's incredible. That's a great question, because it's incredible how many press releases recently have talked. Shopify would be a great example. Shopify reduced their staff not because they said that their business is struggling, but because their growth plans as a result of the pandemic were too ambitious, which translates into we hired too many people. There's a really gut reaction when there's too much work to do to say we need more people, primarily because managing freelance resources or sort of typical agency relationships just is really challenging and has lots of overhead. But over the past decade in particular, agencies like Brainrider, who are really creative resourcing partners, allowing you to scale up or scale down and get more done, have added to the flexibility in the staffing model. So it's no longer do I hire or do I transfer or do I lay someone off? It's really what are the core capabilities I need from a marketing execution perspective internally? And then what partners can I work with to get more scale and flexibility quickly? So what I would say right now is to avoid layoffs and get more flexibility in resourcing, the first thing is collaborate across multiple business units. So as your company, if it's truly a growth company, pivots during recession, right? There's always, in fact, the best growth companies double down during recession. Then there will be pockets of your organization that are short people. I talked about the yin yang of laying people off while simultaneously hiring. And so if you think about collaboration and pooling your internal resources, that can help. And then a mid to long-term strategy, particularly as you spin up quickly over the next few quarters coming out of economic uncertainty, really lean into a more flexible resourcing approach that allows you to prioritize your most important projects against internal people. Hopefully that answers that question as well. I know I'm going a little bit long, so I'm just going to hit you with really a little bit about us. You know, Brainrider's approach is to flex with you. As a multinational agency, so we're working in the UK, across the US, and in Canada. And then we actually have teams that execute across other geographies. We're delivering flexible resourcing models. I sort of outlined them a second ago. We do regular project work. We do reserve capacity, which gives you capacity on demand. And then we do fully embedded contingent work teams. And that's across full service agency. So design, art direction, copy, long form writing, and then marketing, planning, and execution of campaigns, right through to marketing automation, CMS work, CSS work, along with the project management that you need and the account management you need for insights. And then the last piece is just because you're working with a partner doesn't mean that you shouldn't get people who care about your business. One of the big agency advantages is that we actually put a lot of effort into internal culture and training so that we have an energized and motivated team that tries to understand and most importantly cares about your business. Look, Don Draper from Mad Men is a model that is 50, 70 years old with a lot of arrogance. Modern resource-based agencies are really about understanding your needs and delivering against them and making the whole process more insightful and fun. Okay, I'm getting down to the end of it. If you have any more comments, let me know. You can happily follow up with us after the webinar as well. I'm happy to do one-on-one just to discuss your own internal needs and figure out how to help you stay on track to meet your goals and maybe even realize a few new ones. Thanks for joining me at today's webinar. Really hope if you think that these are some of your needs that you reach out. We won't sell you hard. What we'll really do is take a look at the situation you're in, help you diagnose the work that you've got, the volume of work that you've got, the skills that you'll need to accomplish that work, and then the best model to get it done with the right level of integration. So come along and ride with us. And thanks so much for joining me today at Brainwave. Cheers.